60 Minutes Rewind.
Hugh Thompson was a helicopter pilot back in 1968 on a day American soldiers gunned down more than 500 unarmed civilians in a village called My Lai. The dead were women, old men, children. And even more of them would have died if Thompson had not confronted his fellow soldiers, stopped their murderous rampage, and airlifted a number of civilians to safety. For years, the U.S. military tried to cover up the My Lai massacre, and Hugh Thompson was treated not as a hero, but as a traitor. But that all changed for Thompson one night this past March at a special ceremony in Nashville, Tennessee.
Captain Retired U.C. Thompson and his escort, Colonel Retired Dr. Hal Kushner.
It was a night Hugh Thompson, the man on the right, never dreamed would happen. For years, he'd been treated as an outcast, a turncoat, because he had dared to question his fellow American GIs, who said that they were just following orders. But this night, at last, he was being honored and inducted into an elite fraternity, the Army Aviation Hall of Fame.
As an OH-23 pilot with the 123rd Aviation Battalion, Chief Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson flew over the Vietnamese village of My Lai on March the 16th of 1968 as U.S. troops were killing civilians.
That day back in 1968 was truly barbaric. Young, inexperienced American troops, told by their leaders that My Lai was an enemy stronghold, rounded up civilians, burned down their huts, and then shot hundreds of them down in cold blood. Hugh Thompson, believing at first it was a legitimate combat operation, was flying his small chopper over My Lai that day, trying to draw enemy fire away from the American GIs on the ground. But there was no enemy fire. And when he saw the piles of bodies, he felt sick and ashamed. What happened was so shocking, so inconceivable, that we asked Thompson and his gunner Larry Colburn to go back with us to Vietnam and explain it all to us for a 60-minute story in 1998. Thompson told us he landed his chopper near a rice paddy, and while his crew covered him with M60 machine guns, he managed to save some civilians from being murdered. But he says he could not stop others from being gunned down even after they'd been marched into this ditch.
170 people were marched down in there. Women, old men, babies. GI stood up on the side with their weapons on full automatic and machine gun fire.
There were no weapons captured. There were no draft age males killed. They were civilians.
Ditch full of bodies?
Yes, sir.
No, it was full, sir.
Full of blood?
Yes, sir. Some of the people were still, they were dying. They weren't all dead.
As Thompson and Colburn were recalling the horrors of that day for us, an elderly woman walked toward us. She said that she had been dumped in the ditch back in 1968, but had survived, shielded by the bodies of the dead and the dying.
Sorry we couldn't help you that day.
Why, she wanted to know, were so many villagers killed that day? And why was Thompson different from the rest of the Americans?
I saved the people because I wouldn't taught to murder and kill. I can't answer for the people who took part in it. I apologize for the ones who did. I just wish we could have helped more people that day.
In fact, they did help more people. Thompson and Colburn found 9 or 10 villagers cowering in a bunker.
Thank you.
They radioed for a couple of choppers, which airlifted all of them to safety.
And I'm so sorry.
And we managed to find 2 of the women they'd saved. Mrs. Nung, who was 73 at the time, was 43 when she was rescued. Mrs. Nung was only 6.
You were very small then. You were at the entrance. This is Larry. This is Larry. He was with me that day.
Didn't you take your life in your hands, Hugh, when you got out and told the American soldiers who had been killing that they better quit and let these people get out of the bunker? If you won't answer that, Larry, didn't he?
Yes, sir, he did. And He didn't even take a weapon with him. He had a sidearm. He didn't even have it drawn. He just placed himself
In harm's path.
And I was thinking that at that point, anything could have happened. And we watched Mr. Thompson go to the bunker and bring the people out.
There was just, no value whatsoever on life.
I reminded the two men about another woman they'd tried to warn as they hovered just above her in their chopper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
An Army photographer had taken her picture.
We saw her in the tall grass, and I motioned for her to stay.
And so she crouched down but didn't...
I was hoping she wouldn't be detected, and when we came back, she was in this condition.
Oh, my.
There's a big difference between killing in war and murder. Cold-blooded murder.
What do you call it when you march 100 or 200 people down in a ditch and line up on the side with machine guns and start firing into it? Reminds me of another story that happened in World War II, like the Nazis.
Stunned by what he had seen that day, Hugh Thompson reported back to his superiors. But from the very beginning, the U.S. military tried to cover up the massacre. And that was not all. Thompson is uncomfortable talking about it, but before the Hall of Fame ceremony in Nashville, he and Larry Colburn told us that the U.S. military had stopped providing him with adequate backup on his chopper missions after My Lai. You kept flying missions, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you kept attracting enemy fire.
Yes, sir.
He was placed in a very precarious position as far as the missions that he was carrying out.
How do you mean? Precarious position.
Well, he didn't have adequate cover, in my opinion. Instead of being followed by two armed gunships, he had another scout helicopter.
Scout helicopters are not equipped with the powerful guns and rockets carried by the larger Huey gunships.
It seemed like he was really going out on a limb when he was going out without adequate cover.
And how many choppers did you lose?
I think 3 or 4, something like that.
4. Actually, Thompson crashed a total of 5 times, and the last time, he broke his back.
Aircraft.
Why has none of this ever been told before?
I don't know. Well, I just sort of like went underground. I didn't mention it to anybody.
Hugh Thompson may have clammed up, but word of what he had done followed him when he returned from Vietnam to the States, and he kept paying a price for turning on his fellow soldiers at My Lai.
I received death threats over the phone. Mutilated.
Anonymous death threats?
Yes, sir. They don't leave there. And we didn't have caller ID. But it was scary. Dead animals on your porch, mutilated animals on your porch some mornings when you get up. So I was not a good guy.
You went to the officers' club, and what'd they do?
You know, be 100 people in there after work. And 5 minutes after I was there, it seemed like it was me and the bartender left.
Thompson came in, they left the officers' club.
Yes, sir. But this was because the truth, I don't think, was out there. I was somebody that was crying and whining about a few people getting accidentally killed. There was no accidental killing that day. It was murder.
But when Hugh Thompson testified about those murders to Congress in 1970, his testimony was kept secret. They didn't want the story out.
No.
About the massacre at My Lai.
Well, not when one of the senior congressmen during these secret testimonies say if anybody goes to jail that day, it'll be that helicopter pilot.
The story will continue after this.
With the truth hidden away, Hugh Thompson admits he felt very much alone. And for years he remained silent about My Lai. The military, meantime, continued to give him the cold shoulder. But that began to change shortly after our story aired on 60 Minutes. To begin with, the military service academies started inviting him to visit and give lectures on military ethics to young soldiers. Thompson began to open up as he told those soldiers unforgettable stories about My Lai.
A lot of the girls didn't scream too much because they'd already cut their tongues out. And a bayonet can kill two real quick if they're pregnant. It got nasty that day. I personally, I wish I was a big enough man to say I forgive him, but I swear to God I can't.
And you continue now to lecture at West Point,
Yes.
lecture at the Naval Academy, trying to tell today's troops what?
To be a soldier and act like a soldier.
The tide turned some more when the Pentagon finally recognized Thompson, Colburn, and Glenn Andreotta, their crewmate who died in Vietnam after My Lai. All three were awarded the prestigious Soldier's Medal. But 30 years had passed since the massacre, and Thompson says it was strangely unsatisfying. Too late, he says, from a reluctant military leadership. But he felt far different on the stage in Nashville, as he was inducted on the first ballot into the Army Aviation Hall of Fame.
He and his crew spotted some Vietnamese trying to hide. He landed and, with crewmen Larry Colburn and Glenn Andreotti covering him, pulled out of hiding 9 people facing certain death and evacuated them from the area.
This is a big one.
Is the big one. Why?
This is my peers electing me to put me in there. This is my fellow aviators, and that makes me feel real good.
Well, I'm proud I know you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Long time coming.
Brother.